We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively outnumbers the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds. How dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred?
It will happen to all of us that at some point we get tapped on the shoulder and told, not just that the party's over, but slightly worse, the party's going on, but you have to leave. and it's going on without you. That's the reflection, I think, that most upsets people about their demise. All right then, because it might make us feel better, let's pretend the opposite. Instead you'll get tapped on the shoulder and told, great news, this party's going on forever, and you can't leave. You've got to stay. The boss says so, and he also insists that you have a good time. I've read about David's father, and I had a bad time when my own father passed on, but the father proposed by monotheism is the father who doesn't die, who reassures his children, don't worry, I'll never leave you. You'll never see the end of me. You'll never get the chance to feel sorry. I'm always there. I'm the absolute ultimate in dictatorship, and in my courts there's no appeal. Do you really think that this would cheer up anyone of sentience or humanity or capable of feeling about anything? I submit it's out of the
Well, I do have existential worries. I mean, I like I think everybody else, am concerned about death. You know, death is in some ways unacceptable. I mean, it's just an astonishing fact of our being here that we die, but I think worse than that is that if we live long enough, we lose everyone we love in this world. I mean, people die and disappear, and we are left with this stark mystery. There's just the sheer not knowing of what happened to them. And into this void, religion comes rushing with a very consoling story saying, nothing happened to them, they're in a better place, and you're going to meet up with them after you die. You're going to get everything you want after you die. Death is an illusion. There's no question that if you could believe it, that would pay emotional dividends. I mean, there's no other story you can tell somebody who's just lost her daughter to cancer, say, to make her feel good. You know, it is consoling to believe that the daughter was just taken up with Jesus and everyone's going to be reunited in a few short years. There's no replacement for that. There doesn't need to be a replacement for that. I think we have to just witness the cost of that. I mean, there are many obvious costs of that way of thinking. One is we just don't teach people how to grieve. You know, I mean, religion is kind of the antithesis of teaching your children how to grieve. You tell your child that grandma's in heaven, and there's nothing to be sad about. That's religion. It would be better to equip your child for the reality of this life, which is, death is a fact, and we don't know what happens after death. And I'm not pretending to know that you get a dial tone after death. I don't know what happens after the physical brain dies. I don't know what the relationship between consciousness and the physical world is. I don't think anyone does know. Now, I think there are many reasons to be doubtful of naive conceptions about the soul and about this idea that you could just migrate to a better place after death. But I simply don't know about I don't know what I believe about death. And I don't think it's necessary to know in order to live as sanely and ethically and happily as possible. I don't think you don't get anything worth getting by pretending to know things.
Sam and I don't mind being called predictable. It's very easy. We know what we think. We say straight out where we think we know and where we think it's not possible to know, why we don't think there's a supernatural for hundreds and thousands of years. This kind of discussion would have been in most places impossible to have, or Sam and I would have been having it at the risk of our lives. Religion now comes to us in this smiley face, ingratiating way, because it's had to give so much ground, and because we know so much more. But you've no right to forget the way it behaved when it was strong, and when it really did believe that it had God on its side.
I'd rather think that we'd be spending more energy learning how to live better. I'd rather start there, and then worry about the longevity thing a little later. Part of knowing that you're going to die, not to get all philosophical on you, but knowing that you're going to die creates a certain focus on your activities in life in the present. If you knew you were going to live for 1,000 years, then at any moment you would say, well, what's my hurry? Why should I finish this manuscript today? Or why should I work late in the lab? I can just go home and watch the game. And so knowing that you lead a finite life creates a certain urgency to the minutes that you live that I value greatly. And I don't know what it would mean if we lived forever or lived a really long time. I don't know what it would mean for my focus. Maybe it's not, you have to be careful what you wish for here. Maybe we live a long time, people become less productive than they do when they don't live very long at all. I think of the mayfly that lives no more than 24 hours. You know, what is life like to them? They'll never see a sunrise if they're born in the daytime. The things that we take for granted that they never see. So every minute of their life is, it's a wall, oh, it's a ceiling, it's a moon, it's a grass, everything is this life experience that's captured and presumably valued in their little brain. So I'd like to take my 75 years on this planet and be like the mayfly, thinking they're only living for a day.
It's considered perfectly normal in this society to approach dying people who you don't know, but who are unbelievers, and say, now are you going to change your mind? In fact, it's considered almost a polite question. And as you know, there's a long history of fraud about this. People claim that Darwin had a deathbed recantation. They made up lies about Thomas Paine. It goes on all the time. It's a very nasty little history. But there's also a horrible undertone of blackmail to it. People write and say, look, you've got about one chance left now. Aren't you going to take it? I'm writing to you as a friend. They've even tried it on me when I've been very ill and I haven't had quite the vinegar I'd like to have had in a hospital bed. I don't mind, I can take it. But I think there are a lot of people older than myself, iller than myself, perhaps at the risk of seeming conceited, less educated than myself, to whom that's a horrible experience. It's very depressing and alarming to be spoken to in that way. I mean, if Sam and I were to form a core of people to go around religious hospitals, which is what happens in reverse, and say to people who are lying in pain, say, did you say you were Catholic? Yes. Well, look, you may only have a few days left, but you don't have to live them as a serf, you know. Just recognize that was all bullshit, that the priests have been cheating you. And I guarantee you'll feel better. I don't think that would be very ethical.
Okay, but
I think it would be something of a breach of taste. But if it's in the name of if it's in the name of God, it has a social license. Well, fuck that, is what I say.
Now, most of us do our best not to think about death, but there's always part of our minds that knows this can't go on forever. Part of us always knows that we're just a doctor's visit away or a phone call away from being starkly reminded with the fact of our own mortality, or of those closest to us. Now, I'm sure many of you in this room have experienced this in some form. You must know how uncanny it is to suddenly be thrown out of the normal course of your life and just be given the full-time job of not dying or caring for someone who is. But the one thing people tend to realize at moments like this is that they wasted a lot of time when life was normal. It's not just what they did with their time. It's not just that they spent too much time working or compulsively checking email. is that they cared about the wrong things. They regret what they cared about. Their attention was bound up in petty concerns, year after year, when life was normal. And this is a paradox, of course, because we all know this epiphany is coming. Don't you know this is coming? Don't you know that there's going to come a day when you'll be sick or someone close to you will die, and you'll look back on the kinds of things that captured your attention, and you'll think, what was I doing? You know this, and yet if you're like most people, you'll spend most of your time in life tacitly presuming you'll live forever. It's like watching a bad movie for the 4th time. Or bickering with your spouse. These things only make sense in light of eternity.
The knowledge that the atoms that comprise life on Earth, the atoms that make up the human body, are traceable to the crucibles that cooked light elements into heavy elements in their core under extreme temperatures and pressures. These stars, the high-mass ones among them, went unstable in their later years. They collapsed and then exploded, scattering their enriched guts across the galaxy. Guts made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and all the fundamental ingredients of life itself. These ingredients become part of gas clouds that condense, collapse, form the next generation of solar systems, stars with orbiting planets. And those planets now have the ingredients for life itself. So that when I look up at the night sky, and I know that, yes, we are part of this universe, we are in this universe, but perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us. When I reflect on that fact, I look up. Many people feel small because they're small and the universe is big, but I feel big because my atoms came from those stars.
Thank you for asking. Well, I'm dying, but so are you. But the short answer is it's a bit early to say. But who can't say that? No one's ever more than a breath away from the end. And we're born into a losing struggle, and we all knew that, or we should, from the beginning. It's just that I have to think about it a little bit more.
I'd like to take a moment, as many people have, to just acknowledge the void that is left by the death of our friend Hitch. While it might be possible to guess what he would have thought about a number of the topics raised here, it's almost impossible to imagine how well he would have expressed those thoughts. The man had more wit and style and substance than a few civilizations I could name.